In the cozy heart of North Carolina, as Christmas bells ring their tune, Triad families decorate and dream of a home they hope to buy soon. They are tired of paying rent, but have been too scared by the news. Less homes for sale and higher interest rates gave everyone the blues. But as we go into the new year, there's an opportunity for joy, as a new home in 2024 is on Santa's wish list for every girl and boy. Rates are lower and homes are selling. The Triad is quite hot. The Sharpe Mortgage Team will talk to you with great care and thought. Even if you are not ready today to take the next step in your life, we know that life can change quickly for a husband and wife. There is no obligation to talk to our local team about your dreams. No stress at this time of year. It's as easy as it seems. Celebrate Christmas knowing you are well on your way to build beautiful traditions and magic for future holidays. The Sharpe Mortgage Team raises a toast to your family's festive cheer, whether you're ready now to buy or waiting till next year. A house truly becomes a home when filled with love and holiday songs. Christmas 2024 in your new home is where happy holiday hearts belong.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, happy holidays, and thank you for downloading this episode with Jennifer Johnson, our certified financial planner. Jennifer, our last episode, we were debating one of my pet peeves, which is listening to Christmas music before Thanksgiving.
Right. I forgot that.
We are now past Thanksgiving, so let the music flow. It is
let it ring. That's right.
It is pumping through all of our speakers on all of our devices at home. So look,
good. That's good.
As I've had to explain to my kids many times, I'm not a Grinch. I'm really not. I am as joyful and jolly as the next person, but the's a time and a place for everything. So
true.
And here we are. So, but while a lot of people are out there getting their holiday shopping done, and if you want some tips, some of the things we talked about last month are still very relevant right now, because we talked about good advice for holiday shopping. And this year, when some of those deals might still be out there if you didn't take advantage of anything around Black Friday. So go check that out.
That's right.
In our archives. But Jennifer, this is going to be our last episode of 2023. So we're here to discuss many year-end things that people need to have on not their Christmas list, but on their financial list.
That's right.
On their financial list before we close out the calendar year. So what kind of things are we going to be getting into today?
Yeah, nothing brings Christmas joy like year-end tax moves, right? To talk about being a Grinch, right? This is not exactly in your stocking, right? But hopefully it'll help you have a little bit better Christmas, maybe, and certainly a good start to the new year. I've really got 5 tips, things for people to think about, because today, as we record, it's December 6th, right? So you've still got a little bit more time, and we'll try to get this out to you, promptly as we can, so you can take some action. But I've got 5 things I wanted to share with folks today. So not an overwhelming list, but just a few things. Some will probably apply to you and some might not. Some might just apply to a friend, but feel free to share that. But we've got a few things I think can still help people out. And gosh, I can't believe here we are, almost the end of 2023.
Yeah. And I think it's important that people don't wait until after or right around Christmas, because Jennifer, some of this is, look, a lot of offices, a lot of people will shut it down here around mid-December.
They will.
And so when you're listening to this, listener, you should probably jump on some of these things right away, because if you wait until later in the month, there's some places that are going to be closed.
That might not happen. Yeah. I do. I think it's going to be important not to put these off. We notice that processing times with places we deal with, as most of our listeners know, I think I'm a financial advisor. So we help people with setting up accounts and, doing transactions. And we notice processing times are already starting to slow. And as you get closer to year end, it's just going to become more and more difficult. So I would really encourage folks, if you want to take advantage of these, get started now. And maybe more importantly for our first one, the first little point I wanted to share was, make sure you're taking advantage of any employer benefits that you might have, like such as, your 401k or some similar type of retirement plan that you're funding out of your payroll deduction, you may not have that many more paychecks this year, right? I mean, if you're most people, you may have two more, maybe even just one more. And one thing I wanted to share with folks is this is really your last opportunity, and that's probably most of our listeners are working for a corporation like that, or an organization where you're funding hopefully a retirement plan out of a payroll deduction. Is if you want to change something that affects your payroll, you really got to get on it now, because you just if you wait till December 31st, it's probably too late to really affect any change.
Yeah, because it won't show up until your next pay period.
That's
right.
right. Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting. I was reading a survey. I think it was MetLife that did this, and I can try to find that and send that to you, Adam, so you could link that in the show notes. But they found that most employees are not fully taking advantage of all the benefits that their employer might offer. 401k could be one of those. Maybe it's a match being left on the table, or I think it also could be, your FSAs, or like flexible spending accounts that people use for, dental expenses. I know someone went to the dentist today, right?
I did, yes. No cavities.
We had to change, the time of this recording, so Adam could keep his dental hygiene up there.
Yeah.
So things like that, are out-of-pocket expenses that you might use an FSA for. A lot of those don't roll over to the next year, so now will be a really good time to check that, see if you got a balance. See what you can use it for, maybe contacts, or if you're going to the dentist, you really need to schedule that like now. You're probably not going to be able to get that appointment, if you wait too late. But just some of those things, if you're like me, you're like, gosh, how did we get to December? And we're leaving things on the table. So we've really got to kind of jump on it if we want to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So tell me if I've got this correct when it comes to these FSAs. I don't want to call them FSA accounts because I think that's redundant, right? So FSAs,
right.
like ATM machine. So
True.
So with an FSA, people contribute out of their payroll so that it's pre-tax, so that it reduces your taxable take home from your paycheck, and it puts it into a spending account, and you use those dollars then to pay for your medical expenses. They do that. We used to do that for childcare. And so, but what you're saying is that balance builds up throughout the year. And if you don't use that by the end of the year, that money may be lost, correct?
Yeah, I would definitely check. A lot of times it doesn't roll over. So you want to make sure you're taking advantage of that. There's another type of account called an HSA, or health savings account, that those dollars do roll over. And those can be nice plans. You have to be on a high deductible health plan to be eligible for that. But those can be a good idea. But I guess probably the main thing for people to take away from this is if you have either one, check, see which kind of plan you've got, and see if you've got dollars in there. You just don't want to lose anything. If it's something that's going to roll over and you can continue to build for the future, I think that's fine. But you just don't want to let that slip away and then have not used some of your hard-earned money there. Because I'm sure most people probably have something they can buy. I believe the FSAs are fairly generous, with, like you said, things like childcare and contacts and things like that. I'm certainly not an expert in that, but just kind of encourage people to check it out and check the rules.
Yeah. So make sure that money does not go to waste, or before that, check to see if it does roll over. And if it doesn't, then try to figure out. All plans are different.
That's right.
So your provider will know best on that. Okay. What else is on this list for year end?
Yeah, the other, let's say you're not working for a corporation or something like that. Let's say you have your own business, right? And that's primarily what you do. There are a lot of options for retirement savings for you. A lot of times you can make contributions. We've talked about this in podcasts of the past, where come tax season, you can still make your IRA contribution for last year and things like that. up until you file your taxes. If you're a business owner, you have all these different retirement plan options. For example, if you're a solo business owner or just a husband and wife business owner, you can have your own 401k plan. Sometimes they're referred to as solo Ks or individual 401ks. And I say individual, even if it's a husband or wife, it usually works okay as long as you don't have other employees. You can have your own plan, and often you can fund those, just like we mentioned with the IRAs, up until you file your taxes. The only tricky thing is with those solo or individual 401ks, they usually have to be established before year end. So if you wanted to make a 2023 contribution or have the ability to make that contribution, when you own a business, both you and I have experience in this, that sometimes you don't know how your taxable income turns out, until after the year is over. And in my case, with the help of our accountants, we figure out what your income and expenses are and kind of what your net is. And if you want to affect that, a lot of things, opportunities are lost, but you can still fund retirement plans. That's one of those things, a little bit of ammunition we might have. The main thing I would say is now would be a good time if, especially if you don't have employees, to consult with someone. That is part of what we do here at Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. So we'd be happy to talk to you about some options there, as I'm sure other folks can as well. If you've got an advisor, definitely talk to that individual and just see, because you'd hate to let the year pass and then get into next year and be limited because you didn't open it in time. So that's just something to be aware of, is if you're thinking ahead to your taxes for this year, which I know, again, doesn't bring Christmas joy, but it might bring spring joy. I don't know, when we're doing our taxes. That might be a tool you'd want to use, but you need to talk to somebody now, because again, processing times are already backing up. You don't want to wait until December 28th, because it may be figuring out what type of plan is right for you and then getting that open. I believe also some of the holidays fall on weekends too, I think. So it may be I feel like New Year's Day might be on a Monday, maybe.
It is, yep.
So, you'd really have to get ahead of that to get something open by year end. So that's another thought, is if you are an employee, take advantage of those employer benefits. If you're your own employer, really think about, what do I need to do before year end? And maybe it's a retirement plan that needs to be opened, even if you're not funding it yet, just to give yourself that option.
And again, that's another one of those where give yourself enough time, like you said, with the New Year's falling on a Monday. That means the last business day is Friday the 29th. We've already talked about places shutting down during Christmas and between Christmas and New Year's. So act now if this is something. If you're an entrepreneur, you own your own business, and you need to set something like this up, that's important.
Yeah, I really would. I would really encourage people just to have those conversations now, because, myself, I know I really like to understand the client, understand the business owner, before we get to that point. So you don't want to be rushed, right? You want to make sure you're having a good conversation and doing something that's going to be productive for you. And if it's last minute, it may just not be as effective.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a good one. Whether it's opening up your own 401k for you and your employers, if you own a business, or like you said, checking in if you are an employee and you have a 401k available to you. What are some things that people might want to check on that front?
Yeah. So if you are an employee, you mean, and you have a 401k, so I think check, your limits went up a lot this year. I think we mentioned it earlier, but just in case folks didn't hear that, if you're under 50 this year, you can put as much as $22,500 in your 401k. If you're 50 or older, the catch up went up a lot. So you could put as much as as $30,000 in your 401k this year. That's probably going to be tough to get in between now and year end, right?
Yeah.
But you may have a lot of room. A lot of times I'll talk to people that might say, well, I think I'm maxing it out. But a lot of times what they mean is they're maximizing maybe the company match, right? Like, so if their company matches up to 6% and they're putting in 6%, which is certainly a good goal to get all the match, but you may have more capacity in there. So that's something really to think about there especially with those limits going up, or you're somebody that had set your contribution based on 2022's max contribution, and then it went up a lot and you just didn't think to change it. Really, really check that out now as we go into year end.
This time of year, people like to make plans for what they want to accomplish. Maybe your focus in 2024 is buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Maybe it's purchasing your first home or building wealth for your family. Whatever your goals are, the agents at the Ginther Group can help. It's never too early to begin working with Blake Ginther and his team, who have been a trusted resource to the Triad community since 2010. To reach Blake and his team at the Ginther Group, just visit theginthergroup.com or give them a call, 336-283-8689. Yeah, and like you said, okay, maybe people don't have time to put in a huge lump sum before the end of the year to reach that max. But if they set it up now, it'll be ready for that first pay period of 2024.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So it's still going to help you in the long run, even if it doesn't catch as much maybe for this year. It's just something it's easy to forget, once you get it going.
Okay. All right. Moving on down the list. What do we have next?
Yeah. One other thing on retirement plans, and then we'll move on. And this is probably going to be for our older listener. It may be for our listeners' parents. I'm not sure. But you can do something also to be helpful on your taxes and maybe help out a charity if you're of a certain age. So, many people may not know. I think there is maybe a growing understanding about this, though rules have changed a lot. But when you reach age 73, if you have a retirement account, you're required to take a minimum distribution each year, sometimes called an RMD or required minimum distribution, if you hear that, or MRD. That's what people are referring to. One way, if people are in a good situation and they really don't need that income or being forced to take it out, and the reason they're forcing you to take it out is so they can tax it, right? If you support a charity, you can do a qualified charitable distribution with that and avoid being taxed on it. So, for example, if you're in a great spot, but you're being forced to take out, I'll just make up the number 5,000 because of my age and the balance in the account. And I might say, well, I really don't need that money, but I'm giving $5,000 to my church or to Second Harvest Food Bank or something of that nature. You can work out, instead of you receiving that distribution, you would send that money directly to a charity. And so that would be a way to benefit your charity, to reduce your tax burden of having to take that out. So that's something to check if you've got a retirement account set up. Now, I will say, I believe this needs to be an IRA. That's one of the odd things about, but I don't know if it's odd. I shouldn't say it that way. Maybe more of a minutia difference between a 401k and an IRA is that I believe it needs to come from an IRA, which when most people retire, they're moving and kind of consolidating anyway to an IRA. But something to be aware of. This is the time of year if people, especially people that don't really need the money throughout the year, are making sure they've taken enough out. I know not a lot of our listeners are probably 73, but you may know someone, parent, uncle, aunt, loved one, neighbor, if you hear them talking about that, it's something they may not be aware of, certainly something they can talk to their tax advisor, financial advisor, a charity they support. I always tell people if it's not something you would give to anyway, that probably doesn't make sense, because you are giving something away, right? Yep. But if it's something like, a lot of times we'll find people are donating to their church, certain charities, with after-tax dollars. And with tax law changes, they may not be able to write that off anymore. So, so it may be helpful to, instead of doing that, give directly from an IRA. It's something to think about. And if you're going to do it, obviously, just like the payroll deductions and things like that, you want to be getting on that now. Maybe talking to the charities that you support, make sure they're good with getting a check, from a different location. I'm sure they'd be glad to.
Yeah.
Something to think about. And something to think about is if you've already done it for this year, same would apply next year, right? You can still do it then.
Yeah. Okay. So that is something that might be distributed at the end of this year through someone's IRA. And what they would need to do is contact whoever services that IRA to set it up as a charitable contribution if they choose. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Like in our case, when we help folks do that, there's typically a form, we would have the person sign that says, okay, and it'll of course list the account it's coming from. And then it might say, send this to, First Baptist at this location, and, attention, secretary so-and-so. And so that way you fill it out exactly, where you want that to go. It's a nice, I don't think it's utilized probably enough. And just something for people, I think, would be, even if it doesn't apply to you, maybe, just spread the word. I mean, we're obviously not here to give everybody tax advice, but just something for people to be aware of, and maybe ask the people that they work with, is this an option for me? Would this help me? And just at least know that there might be something out there that can help them and help their charities.
Yeah, we're certainly not telling people what to do with their money. All we're trying to do, and all Jennifer's trying to say, is if you are in that position where you qualify to have this mandatory distribution from an IRA, at least be aware of it and determine what you want to do with that.
Yeah, ask some questions, because if you don't know to ask, right? I don't know. Yeah,
exactly.
You don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving on to something outside of the retirement account now.
Yeah. Couple things I would say. One, similar thing is if you're doing charitable donations, you might consider something called a donor advised fund. So as I mentioned, a lot of people now, with changes to tax laws, are not giving enough really to qualify for any sort of deduction on their taxes. But donor advised funds became very popular because you can kind of bunch your contributions together, and then make distributions out of those to the various charities that you might support. So, like, for example, if you, and you have to have the funds to do this, obviously, but, maybe now, if you haven't done your charitable contributions for the year, a lot of people do that in December. They do that latter part of the year. You could make a contribution to a donor advised fund. You and your spouse, your family unit, decide how much you want to do. You make a contribution to that donor advised fund. It's sort of like creating your own, I shouldn't
like
say creating your own charity. Yeah, in many ways.
Foundation.
Yeah,
that's what this sounds like to me.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, and you still control it. You're the donor, and you would control who gets the funds. But what you might do is, if we use that same like 5,000 number, is here in December, you might put in 5,000, which would be for 2023, and then put in like 5,000 for 2024, and that might give you enough deduction, that you could write off your taxes, right? So that way, if you bundle your contributions, and then, you control that fund, and you can make those distributions throughout the year, as you kind of see fit. So that's one way that people, kind of bunch their contributions. There's a lot of places that offer donor advised funds, that you can check with. Some are very low fees too, that you can set up on your own. I think, again, you don't want to wait till December 29th, right? But, folks can do that really, frankly, on their own. A lot of times, if you're just a little bit savvy, make a contribution, and then you can you can do all your family's charitable donations through that fund, and it just kind of consolidates from there. So that's a way in terms of like supporting charities, something for folks to think about, maybe a way to benefit. I know not everybody can afford to do 2 or 3 years of charitable donations all at once. That may be something you just can't afford to do, but if you are in a spot, that might help you out. Definitely, ask your tax advisor if that makes sense for you. And if so, be something you want to go ahead and get on now.
Yeah, that's a good one. I wasn't aware of that. I've learned a couple new ones here today.
Good.
So, that sounds like a really beneficial way to keep things organized and have the control. But at the end of the day, it's also enabling people to make it easier to donate to the places they want. So it benefits both sides. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, a lot of people like that because they'll make that one contribution, right? And then your for your tax records, that's kind of done, right? As far as your donation, and then you can give $100 here, $500 there, like however you kind of want to do it out of the fund.
Yeah.
Now, once it's in there, it's a donation, right? So you're not supposed to take it back. That's my understanding anyway. I don't know what would happen. I've not been personally involved in that, but that's again something to be sure of. That when you're making that donation, you're saying, okay, this is going to be a donation for a qualified charity, and you've put it in that fund. It's just something I just want to make people aware of. Some tools and things they may not know about, so they know enough to kind of investigate, as we certainly believe here, and and getting personalized advice. So take these things, go to the people you trust in your life. If you don't have someone that you trust, you certainly can call us here, but take those to them and just say, hey, would this help me out? And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine, but maybe it does for somebody. So that's really the goal here.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. All right. Do we have any remaining on the list?
I got one more. I got one more. Hopefully we haven't lost anybody yet, but this is more something to like, it's maybe an opportunity, maybe something to watch out for too. But also, we're coming up on year end, outside of retirement accounts now. Okay. So this would not be something to look for in a retirement account, but like say you had bought a stock in like a brokerage account, just something you bought, I shouldn't say for fun, but you bought it outside of your retirement account, as an investment, especially after last year and all the volatility we had there. If you bought a stock at $100 back at the beginning of 2022, and it's now trading for 80, you can sell that and create a capital loss, right? Because you lost $20 a share, right? Or $20 total, maybe, if that's my total example. If you've lost money on something, you can sell that, and that would be a capital loss. That might help you on your taxes this year. You can then wait and buy that back after a certain number of days have passed. So say it's a stock you love, but it just happens to be down, right? So you could sell that. We call that tax loss harvesting, and you'd have a loss that would flow through on your taxes. So that's something to maybe look at your stocks and mutual funds and things that you own outside of retirement accounts and say, is there something in there I could sell and create possibly a loss? Does that make sense, Adam? What I'm saying there?
Normally, Jennifer, I can follow along with most of what you're talking about, but stay with me on this.
Okay.
This one, I am totally lost on what you're saying.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Here's why I say that, because Jennifer knows what she's talking about, and this is why I do this show, and this is why I work with Jennifer, because she's an expert and I am not. And so if you want to learn more about what tax loss harvesting is, contact her. Right. Contact her in the information in the show notes, and that she will give out here in just a moment.
Really good point. Yeah,
really to better understand what that means, because It does make sense what you're talking about. This is a way to be able to take what you may have lost in capital investments and realize that in your taxes, but not necessarily get rid of the stock completely.
Yeah. Maybe the right, like maybe the thing to say is you can, you may have a loss on your statement, right? You bought something at $100, it's now worth 80. In my example, that loss, unless you sell that, it doesn't help you at all on your taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you take the loss, if you sell it, you can then that gets reported. It, hopefully helps reduce some taxable income. That doesn't mean you can't buy it back in the future, right?
Yeah.
So if it's something like you love, maybe that's a better way to explain that. I don't want to get too in the weeds on that, but that might be something just to like look at if you're doing your own investments. Oh, do I have anything in the red, in the negative? You can usually see that online under the gains and losses if you're doing it yourself. Certainly if you've got an advisor, that person should be helping you with that. Like that's to your point, Adam, that's what we're here for. So you don't have to get too much in the weeds there. So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah. I think that this would require a good sit down consultation with you to better explain what that means. Because I don't know that we can cover it all in the podcast, but if there's a listener out there like me that, okay, I need to go over this again to understand it better, then if somebody is in that position like myself, how can they reach you to set up?
Absolutely. Yeah, they can call us. We're here local to Winston-Salem. Our phone number is 336-701-1600. You're welcome to ask for me, and you can ask. You can tell whoever answers the phone that you want to learn about tax loss harvesting, and they'll pass you right through. Or you can check us out online too. We do have a website, though we don't have an explanation of tax loss harvesting on the website because probably no one would read it, right? But we're Three Magnolias Financial Advisors, all spelled out. You can also email me. My email is Jennifer@3-Magnolias with an S. So Jennifer@3-Magnolias.com. And I promise not to get too deep in the weeds. That's more. Hopefully, I've given you some questions to just ask your folks and things to be aware of that you could possibly apply to your own lives.
Yeah, some new things to put on your look. Kids have Christmas lists. We gave you some things to put on your adult Christmas list.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, happy holidays to you, Jennifer.
Thank you. You too.
We'll talk again in the new year.
Okay. Thanks, Adam.
Some IRAs have contribution limitations and tax consequences for early withdrawals. For complete details, consult your tax advisor or attorney. Generally, a donor-advised fund is a separately identified fund or account that is maintained and operated by a Section 501c3 organization, which is called a sponsoring organization. Each account is composed of contributions made by individual donors. Once the donor makes the contribution, the organization has legal control over it. However, the donor or the donor's representative retains advisory privileges with respect to the distribution of funds and the investment of assets in the account. Donors take a tax deduction for all contributions at the time they are made, even though the money may not be dispersed to a charity until much later. Securities offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Located at 110 Oakwood Drive, Suite 480, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Cetera Advisor Networks are not affiliated. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. All economic and performance information is historical and not indicative of future results. The market indices discussed are unmanaged. Additional risks are associated with international investing, such as currency fluctuations, political and economic stability, and differences in accounting standards. The views depicted in this material are for information purposes only and not necessarily those of Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC. They should not be considered specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Neither Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.